but you're not
Talked to her
first,
this morning,
okay,
so,
okay.
yeah.
So I'll report, I won't disclose a whole lot, but I'll report Wednesday morning. And then we'll just.
Everybody's so serious.
Right?
You know, the DDA is a little bit, you know.
Are there more coming? Let's see. I think that's it.
This is all of us.
Okay. sounds
And
good.
you think Dan is still coming?
I think Dan is.
I think we're gonna-
So,
And you're second, so we're gonna go ahead though and get started.
okay.
Cause we have everybody we need, right, for our first topic for broadband? So, we're gonna get started with the town board work session for Monday, September 17th at 6:02 PM. Again, the goal of the work session is to have the town board receive information on topics of town business. So we have 4 items this evening, and our first item this evening is a broadband follow-up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Board. At our last meeting that we had in August, there was direction from Town Board to come back and look at a draft ordinance and what would be broadband friendly, and then also take a look at another statistically valid survey that we haven't done before to kind of study the needs of the community. And so I've got that information for you tonight. The purpose is to receive direction if you guys want to do the broadband friendly ordinance and if you want to do the survey. So I'll hit the highlights because I know you have a heavy agenda tonight. So the main goal of the ordinance, you saw it in your packet, thanks to the help of the attorney's office, and then we also had staff review this in Public Works, Engineering, and Planning. And so there's 3 main goals of this ordinance. So anytime a trench is open, an open trench, there would be coordination between utilities, Public Works, and developers. And this is a good idea to help minimize the cost because it costs far more to open up a trench than it would be to install the conduit when it's already open. So that's kind of allowing for the coordination of different parties. And then also taking a look at the roadway improvement plan. Engineering already has this on file. They do a 5-year capital plan that you guys see every year in the budget, so they know where things that we're planning on our end. And so instead of tearing up the street multiple times, this would allow for that coordination. The second thing is this would also allow for our town to be able to establish a GIS database of where things are going, where utilities are being laid. That's just a really good best practice. So that would give us the depth, the measurement, so we can know what's really going into the ground to have a good idea of that. And then the third thing would be allowing to install conduit on new streets. So anytime developers or the town, if we were to do new streets, especially in residential development, this would allow for future broadband needs, and so to be able to install that conduit. And also, anytime that happens, it will, we have it written that broadband service providers shall install local communication lines. So they're not required to, but it is encouraged the way that Kim Emil and I worked on the ordinance. So if they came back and said it's just not financially feasible, they don't necessarily have to do it, but it's strongly encouraged. And it would be on a first come, first served basis and allow room for the town if we were to install our own fiber, but certainly allowing that conduit. Is there any questions about the ordinance itself?
Go ahead.
Would it cover like third-party construction, like I'm thinking Thornton Water Project, if they put a pipeline, would we then be considering putting conduit in that, or is it just projects that we do?
Nope, it could be private service providers or other municipalities or our own projects. So anytime a trench is open, there is that option.
Okay.
And at this point, it's only gonna be optional, not mandatory. So that's my first question. And then the second question would be, if we decide not to go down a broadband initiative, does this still benefit us having this?
So the first question is it mandatory? It's strongly encouraged because there is an opt-out provision that says, you know, if it's not feasible for that developer or the town to install conduit, then they don't have to. But we do have it's worded as they shall, but then follows up with if they're not able to provide within a certain amount of miles and.
So even the conduit is optional.
Uh-huh.
And who determines that?
The town, so the director of engineering is the person that would be working with the developers, the town, or other utility providers to be looking at that, map.
So is it like a developer says they want to appeal, the wording says shall,
Mm-hmm.
now the developer, I said I don't want to. Do I have to show a reason why?
You would have to show reason, which is listed
Okay.
and it does say shall, so we're saying, yes, you can install it, but it's not necessarily that
Okay.
it's binding that you have to do it.
Isn't what brought this up was Pelican Farms? Didn't they say that there isn't any high-speed internet at all at Pelican Farms, for instance? And that the
Not
developer
exactly.
didn't put it in, I thought that that's what we had talked about at that.
No, I mean,
meeting.
I think Ken made this request just because he thinks, I think a lot of us think that I don't think it was anything specific other than it's cost efficiency
Yeah.
and taking advantage of when folks are already working so that we don't have, I don't think there was a specific incident that we were following up on.
Yeah, and it was part of our broadband study that we did. There was a whole list of things that we looked at, financial modeling, policies, and this is one of those things that came out of that as
I
the
just
low
thought that
hanging
the conversation at Pelican Farms had come up
It
because they don't.
did come up, it's part of that, but Kelly's right, it was really part of when Dan Cruz did the study, we focused so much in on whether or not the town should provide broadband, and that was really what we heard and what we discussed. But this was kind of her low hanging fruit, like no matter what else you do,
Right.
here's some broadband friendly ordinances, and I'll give you guys a quick example. We built about 2 miles of broadband to the new courthouse and Osprey corporate office and all this stuff. It was a $250,000 bill, and 25,000 of it was the broadband. It was actual fiber. The rest was all hanging on poles, buried and stuff. So this is just, if the trench is open, just kind of that dig once policy. And I don't know if we've talked in the weeds, but I'm used to, like, if we say you need to put this in, we provide the conduit. So it's not an additional cost to the developer. You'd say, here's our one-inch conduit, run it with you. So there's really no additional cost to them, or it should be fairly minimal.
Okay.
So it's not really the cost of development, it's just as a local government saying we want the conduit in. To your question, Miles, we wouldn't even be running fiber then,
Right.
we would just have the conduit and then pulling the fiber at whatever point. If we elect to do that, and if we say we're never gonna do it, Mayor, we can say, you know what, we've already got this conduit in place and we're fine, let CenturyLink or whoever else.
So you can do other things with it.
Mhm.
Once,
It'd probably be for telecom, but it wouldn't
Okay.
have to just be local government telecom. We could put whatever policy in place that we wanted to say, we're fine with private providers pulling through this.
Well, I'm wondering if it even should be optional, if it's, I mean, how much is,
Well, I
once the trench is open, you do that anyway, we're not forcing people to go
I
back.
think it would just be something to where they, if they
Yeah.
could really say, this is impossible to run for X, Y, and Z, or this would add hundreds of $1,000s onto our project for whatever reason, that we have some kind of way out, that if we don't wanna put in this unreasonable restriction.
Mhm.
But I would think in most cases, the vast majority, it would be, you got an open trench, here's your conduit, please run this for us, for a policy. And
I think the reason Pelican Farms came up is because the issue of that neighborhood specifically came up. Because had this policy already been in place, we would already have conduit in that neighborhood where even though the developer didn't put in the communications infrastructure, we'd have the ability to retrofit the neighborhood at this point.
I thought it was the provider didn't, it was the provider didn't put it in or something.
I don't know if they are anymore. I was just dealing this weekend with a project at my house, and back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, Quest would put in lines at everybody's house, whether they thought you were gonna do it or not. And obviously that comes with a cost for them to do that, and I don't think new developments are automatically putting in a line in the hopes that,
But I thought didn't Xfinity, I thought we had complaints that Xfinity wasn't working up there, and I don't know why, they said there weren't enough houses yet, this was a couple years ago, I think.
I don't remember
I don't know,
that.
it just seems like a no-brainer that they would put it in.
Would that run right up to the house or just be stubbed out behind the sidewalk or whatever for later.
You know, that's more of an engineering question, I'd have to look, Dennis isn't here, so I don't know exactly the mechanics, if it goes to your home, or if it's just, I think it's just on the right of
I think
way.
just on the right of way.
And then that last, you know, couple of feet would be,
Up to the owner.
Cause the houses aren't built yet or whatever, so.
Yeah.
So does it save, so it, I mean, I know it minimizes impact, but does it also save us then, money in the long run?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now,
Show me.
I think it would save somebody money in the long run, for sure. Yeah, cause again, burying fiber is normally 3 times more expensive than hanging it on poles. That's just like a little rule of thumb, you know, when you dig it in the street and do all that work, it's a lot more expensive. But when you have the open trench, and there's really a minuscule cost, if you're just paying for conduit, that's just, you know, pennies on
Yeah.
pennies.
so it costs about $2 a foot if the trench is already open, but it costs about 35 to open to the trench per foot, so this is big difference in cost.
And what other communities around us have this did once policy in place?
We looked at some policies, Grand Junction, I think, was one of them, Centennial. I'll have to look at some of the other ones. That's what we modeled the ordinance after, looking some of the best practices.
Doesn't Loveland have one too, or is it?
Well, they
not that
own
common?
their own utility. I'm not exactly sure if they have this particular policy, but
But it is pretty common, man.
Yeah.
This state ones, I think, is a little bit more old news. I would think that most communities have something like this.
Okay.
Okay, you said we're providing the conduit, is that?
But no, that was the
That option
practice,
or is that-
that was the practice where I came from,
Okay.
that the city would just provide it, because again, we wanted to be easy on development, we didn't wanna add costs to
Yeah.
these projects. And it was so much less expensive for the city to just do it when it was open and just provide it. The difference though is we did have a fiber utility, so we did develop fiber infrastructure, so I think we were a little bit further along. But I think even, like I said earlier, even if we never elect to do that as a town, I just think that the cost is so minuscule for us to put this in place and for the town to provide it and just make it nice and easy. Yeah, it's a pretty low risk for us to do it. You know, it really
I'm
is.
not opposed to it, I just wanted to clarify.
Would it be easier on the developer for them to put it in and for us to reimburse or something to the versus? I just worry the developer's going, you're holding up my project,
Oh,
we're
so
still
the
waiting for the.
mechanics, yeah, you're
You
right.
see what I'm? I
Yeah,
don't know.
the way we structured, I think if the board is supportive of the overall idea, we can work with engineering on the actual
Okay.
implementation and figure out how we do that. Whether it's them we just say, put in a 1-inch conduit, and we want it run at this depth, and they just do it, and we reimburse them, or if we physically provide it, but.
It could be a selling point for development as well, to say, hey, we're forward thinking, we're running this conduit for future potential broadband. Cause when I moved to Windsor, we didn't even have like Xfinity and stuff, I had to get satellite TV, eventually they came in a few years later. So that's what's probably going on up the hill there.
So if we, if the board is in agreement with moving forward, would this be on Monday night's agenda, Ian? Or is this, or we still have some, or,
The sense I got, I haven't, Kim's been working on this
Okay.
mostly, the sense I got from Kim was that it wasn't ready for prime time
okay,
for next week, but we can.
it would be coming soon.
Yeah,
Okay. So what is the board thinking? Yes?
I agree,
Sarah,
yeah.
shaking your head there. Yep. Okay,
all right. We'll do the final touches on that, and then the survey. So the last time I spoke to you guys, Greeley, I thought that they had been working on creating the survey themselves, but they're working on another ballot initiative, so they haven't necessarily gone full force into creating the survey. So we've got plenty of time to partner, and they are interested. We would, to do a statistically valid survey, myself and some staff for Greeley have been talking about how we could do that. One option is to be able to put it in our utility billing system. So it would be put, either if you get your e-bill or if it's in the mail, whatever you get, you would get a utility bill insert that would prompt you to take the survey. And it's statistically valid as well. So there's systems in place that it's the right sample size, and then there's no ability to do what you call ballot stuffing, so like take the survey multiple times. And it would also be able to, it could be the same questions, but you could indicate if you are a Greeley or Windsor resident. So we would get our own separate survey, because I know that was a concern of the board to just see, all right, we want to know what Windsor thinks, not necessarily Greeley. But that would save us money and that could cost, still kind of working on how many questions that would be. But that's probably around anywhere from, $17,000 to $25,000, and that would be shared between Greeley and Windsor. So that's an option. And in terms of the survey questions, Shane and I were talking, and it would be rather broad. So kind of gauging the community on what is the role of municipal government in terms of broadband. What do you like in terms of the speeds or the cost? So really getting a better baseline on if there's a concern. If so, how does the community address the concern? So that are some options. Yeah.
Will this separate like a resident from a business? I would be interested in hearing what the businesses have to say. It seems
Yeah.
like such an economic driver.
That's a good
So-
point, and we had thought mainly in terms of residential billing, but that's probably a great question is, the second question is, are you a resident or a business? And, maybe it does slightly different questions that we're asking the businesses, so we can certainly do that.
So is Greeley gonna mail to every we're thinking we have to mail to every household? Because we do the citizen survey every year, statistical, and we only mail to so is that the same thought?
Yes,
That there's only gonna be like that X percentage that go out?
I think it probably.
And
we work with
then anybody can go online if they want to?
Well, it'd probably be, we'd probably work with a third party to actually help and call that out and help us do statistically.
Okay.
We certainly wouldn't send one to everybody.
Okay,
And yeah, to me, that's a lot better, because if you go out and you just say, fill your survey out online, people who love the idea and hate it give you the feedback, and you really don't know where you stand.
Yeah, you would have a specific code that you would enter so you couldn't ballot stuff. So yeah, it would be through the utility billing system that we would be able to get the
Okay.
information and then be able to contact residents.
and
if-
what's the price difference? Is the number of questions that are asked, or what drives that variance?
The complexity of the survey, also partnering does save us money, but we're still, we got an initial quote for that range that I mentioned, but we're still trying to work through some of those things, like if the businesses are also included, what would that mean? So any other things that might be brought up tonight that we could continue to look at, and then draft some survey questions if you guys wanted to review them.
Yeah, and probably what I would guess too with that range is just because both Windsor and Greeley are still discussing it, trying to get it figured out. I think we had a pretty generous swag as far as 17 to 25, somewhere in there. Once we get that nailed down a little bit more as far as what we're looking for, I think we could probably get a pretty definite number.
Wasn't 17 to 25 what we paid just for the citizens survey, just for the random response we got for Windsor alone?
The citizen survey, I don't remember the
I
exact
thought it was
cost.
13,000.
Yeah, I think it's around 13, but that's a very large survey. That's not just, we only included about 3 questions related to broadband. Certainly not as in-depth. It was like, do you have broadband service?
Sure.
What do you pay? I think it was.
I'm just
it was
thinking of
pretty broad.
overall the cost, obviously the length of the survey can
Yeah,
change
that
that.
But that was a total cost, and we would split that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's
Yeah.
25,000, we just split that with Greeley.
Mm-hmm.
And will our consultant help with the questions, or?
So this would be working with a different consultant that
Well-
specifies in this type of work.
But they would, I mean, I could come up with some broadband questions, but I'd rather have someone that really knows the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's sources we could use. Obviously, there's other.
The company we've been informally talking to has done this similar survey for Loveland, Estes, and then a couple other Colorado communities.
So they know the questions to ask as
Mhm.
well, okay.
Yep, but we would certainly tailor it to our needs.
Regarding the questions, I don't know that I really, it's the first thing I'd like to see, but I don't know if I need to see the questions, as long as there's 2 major concepts in there. One is, you already mentioned, I think, what's the role of government in this? But really important for me is I wanna know what the public is willing to pay for. That's one thing to ask me, do you want ice cream, but then how much do you wanna pay for it?
Because
So
you say, what's the
somehow
role of government, they immediately think it may be a
They're
government
gonna
paid
pay, we're
utility,
providing
right,
that.
right, right.
So somehow it's important to get a feel for what the public is willing to pay for better broadband service.
And that's a good point. We can certainly incorporate a bit of a market rate study within the broad questions, and to be able to tailor it to answer both.
And I think the way to get there is if we can ask questions like, what do you currently pay, what's your speed, are you satisfied with it?
That,
We can kind
yes,
of
we
get
need
there,
some.
but we don't wanna get to the point of, you know, should the town of Windsor provide you gigabit speed for
Or
$60?
Right,
You know,
no,
golly, we're not near there, so we're trying to figure out how can we
Right.
get specific
Right.
feedback without letting people know, look, we're already down the road and we're gonna do this, because we're
Right.
certainly not.
Well, it's also a waste of time though, if we don't drive them towards a realistic number. Because if
Yeah.
everybody says, I wanna pay $49, we already know that the realistic number is more like $89.
right,
I'd rather they know, are you willing to pay
right,
whatever it's gonna cost to do this?
yeah.
Right, well, and part of that, you know, I think we could ask along the lines, would you be willing to increase sales taxes? I mean, you know, is there, if you wanna pay 50 a month, we could probably deliver that, depending on if people wanted to increase their property taxes to do that. I mean, I'm not suggesting that people
Right.
don't, I'm just saying that would be, you know, that would be a way for, you know, us to deliver service at less than market rate, or less than market cost would be if we had, you know, paying our debt service somehow, somewhere else.
Yeah, based on what we've done so far, you know, there seemed to be some confidence that we could go faster than what we currently have for less money than what people currently pay. And that would be our goal, but to put a number on that now would be pretty difficult.
Maybe even just, you know, sort of range, like answer A is $0 to $10, B is $100 to $1,000.
What would you
whatever
expect to
do,
pay?
but- Right, but some way of showing the range of what they're willing to pay, because there's a big difference between $49 and $89 a month.
What's the timeline? Is this something that once, everybody, I mean, is this something we would try to get done before the end of the year? And delivered over like how long do you leave it open, the survey, before you close it down? And then what's the time frame to gather all the information to come back? Is this like a 2-month project or a 6-month project?
Our consultant originally had 11 weeks total.
From start to finish? From
Mhm.
when-
So
once,
that's-
once we decide that we're
That's us
gonna
creating
have-
the questions, that's presenting the findings, so.
So about 2.5 months.
Would it be pertinent to the survey, and I don't know, we know this answer right now, but to demystify or to explain or break down the term broadband? Because I think that term is thrown out there so much. I don't know if the average resident actually knows what we're talking about when we say broadband.
Right.
I don't know that it actually means we're talking about fiber or high-speed internet, or, you know what I mean? I'm not saying we have to have an answer tonight. I just know that if somebody sees a survey talking about broadband,
So we would
short of
have-
them having to do their own research to figure out what we're actually, and why, and, you know, all of that, I'm just saying, we throw that term around. It's like me working with seniors, there's a lot of terms that I would use amongst younger people that I don't use when I'm, you know, communicating to a different age. I'm just saying, because we throw that kind of stuff around, because we know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
but
That's a really great
when you're talking
point.
about the public as a
Yeah,
whole,
that's a
et
good
cetera, that may be uneducated, educated, you know what I mean, et
Yeah.
cetera, is there a way to break it down where we say high-speed internet specifically, and we don't use the term broadband?
Exactly,
something,
so this would be
you know.
called an internet services survey. So it wouldn't be called broadband at all, because people don't necessarily know what that means. And so
Okay.
every question, we wouldn't say, are you happy with broadband? People might say, I don't know what the heck that is. So it would be custom to the average person and knowing what they may know or not know in regular terms for
Good,
people.
good, that's
And
the
to
reason.
Miles's point, the consultant that you're looking at has done these surveys in other communities,
Mhm.
so they would have probably a bank of questions.
That's right.
So it sounds like we have consensus about doing the survey, so what's the next step? You would tell Greeley, you would narrow it in into a more firm cost, and then like maybe the citizen survey, they're gonna probably recommend, here's 10 questions you must ask, or you should ask, and then here's what are 2 or 3 that maybe aren't in this group that you would like to have, or something like that.
Exactly. The first step is I would go back to Greeley and say, yes, our board is interested, and we would first have to amend our IGA that we have with them, because we did that for the original study that we have. So I would work with Ian and Kim on amending that, and then working with the consultant to see, what would it look like, and then really crafting some of those questions to answer all of.
And those things can probably run concurrently, we could be
Mhm,
working with the
exactly.
consultant and the IGA concurrently. And I just wanna be clear with the board that, so we'll do the survey, and we should get some kind of feedback, is this something that our residents want us to pursue,
Yeah.
and they're willing to pay for, what that is. if they say yes, pursue it, and yes, we're willing to pay for it, we're gonna certainly have another survey or two before this is all said and done, so I just want you guys to know that as we go down this road, I think we're gonna wanna touch back in, cause at some point, we're gonna get to the, okay, now we know we can provide, 50 megabits at $50 per month, what's gonna be our take rate, and so we're gonna have to get back out and do that, so I just wanna kind of forewarn you guys that we're kind of dipping our toes in, and I think it's a fiscally responsible way to do it, because in the world of high-speed fiber, $12,000 is a drop in the bucket is compared to what we could spend, but I just wanna prepare you guys, that if we do this and we end up going down this road, we're gonna need to touch base with our residents a time or two after this as well.
Right. And in the meantime, I already told Shane this, but I do wanna set up a regional community mayor conversation and invite them to all gather around the table to have a broadband conversation. I know Severance has got something that maybe they're working on that they might be able to share in the next 30 days, and all our other communities who haven't gone down that, I'm not talking about Loveland and Fort Collins who already know what they're
Yeah.
doing, but all of the other maybe communities that are still kind of
Got it.
wondering what we should do. So if maybe you could help with that, since that's kind of your topic, to
Absolutely.
get a date together in the next 6 to 10 weeks where they all could come and we'd gather around the table and have our conversation.
Good idea, thanks.
Okay, good, thank you, Kelly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good work.
Okay. Our next item is the DDA budget. And we have Matt Ashby here, the executive director, as well as two other board members, Brett Finney and Dan Stas, who's serving as president. But do you have a title? What is your? Oh, no, not yet.
Do you want one?
Doctor of optometry.
You didn't get one in the strategic planning meeting last Thursday?
Do you have a title?
Do
Yes.
you want one?
Nope.
We
I'm good.
While Matt gets ready, I'd just like to take this time to thank the town. I'm celebrating my 25th anniversary here in Windsor with my store. And I've always thought, Teresa, it's my wife's name, we need to just hang on. Windsor's gonna boom, Windsor's gonna boom, it's gonna turn the corner. I can tell you this, you can really feel it downtown. I think the fruits of the labor of the DDA, and to thank you guys, the town board for the partnership, because you guys are instrumental and invaluable with us, with our strategic plan. We couldn't ask for a better partnership. And we are so excited to be working with the new town manager and also the new town board members. Without you, we couldn't do this. But you can really feel the optimism that's downtown again. Not only with the redevelopment of the mill, and we feel like also the existing businesses, not only with the economic development of newcomers like Brinkman, and Matt will touch on all this stuff, we're also seeing the fruits of the labor with the existing businesses. Their bottom line has increased due to a lot of the efforts that we have done with not only our marketing committee, which our mayor is the chair of, but also the efforts that we've made downtown with concrete, getting people into downtown and shopping. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt, but I just wanted to really thank the board, and it's working. And we're so excited that we're seeing everybody that's on the board is volunteer, and they're so excited. And there's a fire that's happening again with the downtown now that the mill is going again. And I'd just like to turn this over to Matt and thank you very much for everything.
Was that a pun? There's a fire.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, maybe a bad choice of words there. Yeah. Whoops. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan, for.
Good thing it's being recorded.
Thanks, Dan, for kicking it off. Again, my name is Matt Ashby. I'm the executive director of the Windsor DDA. And we've got a pretty exciting program that's going on. There's been a lot of activity over the past year since our last session. And I want to highlight some of the objectives that we had last year about this time to move forward. And we've organized them under design, organization, vitality, and marketing. And those are the principles of Main Street, which is a redevelopment approach. It's a management philosophy, which is part of a program that we're a part of through the State Department of Local Affairs. So it's a good way to organize downtown development. So under the concept of design and beautification, our job is really to make downtown irresistible. And so some of the things that we've done to enhance our buildings and streetscapes, first, our facade program is one of our signature programs to get the dollars that you invest in the DDA out into the community and working to help businesses. This year we had two programs two buildings that took advantage of that. Chimney Park with their remodel recently, as well as the 501 Main, which is the old bank building at corner of 5th and Main Street. Those improvements are just taking place now. That investment was $42,000, and that leveraged over $200,000 of investment into those two buildings. So good return on that money. Second item, we are kicking off our wayfinding study, and I'll go ahead and pass this around. This is just some information on the basics, but for those of you that might not be familiar with the term, wayfinding is essentially providing signage that directs people how to get into Windsor and leave some of their money here. So capturing people off the interstate, making sure that they know that there's a downtown, that they can get to Town Hall and some of the other critical destinations in the community, and do it in a way that's cohesive and attractive in presenting a positive impression of Windsor. So we anticipate that study will wrap up later this year. We've got a number of different meetings that'll be happening from now until the end of the year. And then next year we'll really be launching into implementation and construction of some of those signage elements in partnership with the town. The third item we want to highlight is crosswalk assessment. So 4th and Main and 5th and Main are hotspots for people crossing Main Street. And we really want to make sure that we're providing for those physical cues for people to slow down as they're driving through town and be on the alert and look out for pedestrians that are crossing. We also think that this will have benefits traffic-wise, but actually it's on our agenda this Wednesday to approve a contract to start looking at the design of those crosswalks to see what we can do to basically enhance those. It may be a blinking light, it may be a push button, it may just be physical elements that help to emphasize the fact that there is a crossing there. We're not sure yet what that solution is, but we're committed to finding out what those might be option-wise for us to elevate that safety component. And then the fourth thing that we're looking at is the Park Late program. And we've heard concerns about parking in downtown, and one of the things that the board highlighted was there's a lot of private lots that people don't realize could be used after business hours. And so we're looking at creating a program that would basically work with private property owners to put up a sign that says parking available after hours, after 5, you can park here, and figure out how the mechanics of that would work. So opening up more opportunities for parking that already frankly exist within the community. So we've gotten started on that one. Organization is really about rallying the troops and getting people excited about downtown. And we do that through enhanced communication and outreach. One of the items that we started this past year was the What's Brewing Downtown, and that's about a monthly, bi-monthly session that makes myself available for community members to come in and chat, ask some questions about what might be on their mind for downtown. We've had about a dozen of those, and while the turnout's not as big as Mayor Melendez's Coffee with the Mayor, and thankfully so, we've had some really good discussions with folks. Questions that they've asked have been great and brought up some really good ideas. Second item is our block captain program. So basically we've assigned each board member to be assigned to a block, most likely where their business is at within the downtown, and be responsible for just taking a lap about every quarter with information or handouts. We've got some things here that will be part of the next round of block captain, but it's opening up that dialogue to make sure that those business owners know, hey, I've got somebody that I know I can talk to if I've got a question or concern I can go to Dan and find out what's going on. So it's about kind of just elevating that communication level. And finally, one of the other great things that we achieved this year, the Colorado Main Street program is supplemented by the Department of Local Affairs. And it's a network for us to connect with other communities that are doing downtown development, as well as tap into additional resources. And we were able to demonstrate that our program is sufficiently organized and we have the infrastructure in place to function at a high level. And so we were allowed to move up to the designated status from our previous candidate status. And so what that does is that opens up additional grant funds and technical assistance to us, again, bringing more funds into the program than we were previously able to access. So great news there. On the vitality side of things, this is really about propelling investment. And I would say of our focus, this is kind of the one that really gets a lot of our attention. So promoting businesses and development. First one on the list is the mill redevelopment. And we're so excited that we were able to work with the town and Blue Ocean to get the mill project up and running again. And get the incentive package back rolling. So definitely excited to see that moving forward. The Birch property was another one that was a high one on the list. It's been a long haul to get that property closed. Closing is scheduled for the 28th of this month. Thank you. So yeah, after lots of fits and starts, we anticipate that property will be ours to work with, and we'll be moving forward to wrap that into the backlot project. The backlot design process is also making good traction. Again, some hurdles that we needed to overcome. First it was environmental questions and concerns, and we were able to get some grant dollars to be able to address those and get the developer comfortable with the process and the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of concern at the Birch property. We've also then started with Legion discussions. We started that conversation probably about 2 years ago, working with them on a visioning session to say, hey, what do you think about the future? And happy to say, since there's no press in the room, that the Legion is excited about the prospects. We've identified a building that they could move into. And so all indications are that process is moving forward. So we'll be coming back to that one as far as what the next steps are, as far as working with the town on facilitating that here later in the presentation. The other thing that we did this year was we explored district growth. So annexation of the downtown has been kind of a question that's on the minds of the DDA board. So one of the directives from the town board since inception has been, we want you to be self-sufficient. And one of the ways to do that would be to expand our boundaries. So the property that we looked at was the East Point property, as far as being kind of a, is that right? East Point? Okay. As being a growth area that could eventually be kind of the eastern gateway into downtown. Ultimately, it was not a good fit for the property owner, and I think we realized that it wasn't a good fit for the DDA. It stretched us beyond our core focus, and I think it would have diluted our service offerings to our folks. And frankly, in order to simply gain financial benefit, I don't think that would have been a good way to do it. I think the partnership that we've established with the town is a more valuable and effective way of continuing the good work that we're doing through the DDA. So at this point, I think we're still considering some strategic growth areas within closer realm of the downtown that over the next couple of years, I think there are some logical properties that could be added to the downtown, but I don't know that that's our 100% focus at this point. We've got a lot on our plate moving forward.
Matt, I'm thinking more, you know, maybe north-south, I mean, versus looking
Yeah.
east-west, I think if you look north-south, you know, we get, some nice commercial areas and some places that can really boom, so. Anyway, yeah, that may be a better option.
And I'll hit on that again later on, as well as we look to next year, as to some of the ideas that we're moving towards. And then finally, marketing, and this is really about championing liveliness, and the goal is to get people downtown, frankly. That's our job, is to get them to downtown and to encourage the businesses to do what they can to get the people in the door and spending money. So some of the ways that we did that was through Small Business Saturday. Had a great event. We provided a lot of swag to business owners as far as things that they could hand out. Generated quite a bit of excitement, and we did the, in conjunction with that and Windsor Wonderland, the Elf on the Shelf promotion, which was basically an effort to get people to go to multiple stores and spot where the elf was. They filled out a card and turned it in for a drawing. And we got over 100 of those cards filled out. So lots of really good participation, and I think people had fun with that. We also participated in the NOCO Guide, which was more of a regional tourism guide to encourage folks to get into Windsor's downtown. And then also we've got our Shop Local rack cards, which describe all the different businesses that are in the downtown, so we can pass those out as well. So those are some of the collateral pieces that we've produced in order to encourage people to get a sense of what's downtown. The other thing that we were excited to be able to do was to sponsor the farmers market. We see that as a great event that the town puts on that draws a lot of people to downtown. So kudos to you all for doing the pavilion and putting the infrastructure in place to make that such a successful event. So that's kind of a snapshot of last year. It's hard to believe when you think about it how much has actually been done. But envisioning where we head in 2019, our financial position is such that at the end of this year, if spending continues the way we anticipate it to, we anticipate rolling over about $240,000 into available dollars next year. Add that to the estimated revenues at about $450,000. That is what we anticipate working with. And I want to make sure to point out, Dan had mentioned the partnership, and for the new members, we are under an intergovernmental agreement with the town to basically provide us with the sales tax base of when the DDA was established. So as far as tax increment goes, you have the base and then you have the growth amount. So for the last 7 years, the town has agreed to basically provide us with that base amount of sales tax that is generated within the boundaries of the DDA district. So that's represented by the light blue, which is the $250,000. So you can see that the town is still the major supporter or major financial backer of the DDA. Now, some of our revenues are increasing. The retail tax increment, we're projecting at about $132,000 for next year. So that is the growth in the sales tax that has happened since 2011 when the DDA was established. Our mill levy is at $24,000, and that is at the 5 mills of property tax, and that's the maximum that we can do as the DDA. So we ramped that up over the course of 5 years. And the property tax increment is at approximately $35,000. We did have some question from the board at our workshop last week as to whether or not that number was correct. So I do have a message in to Dean Moyer to check on that number just to make sure. And then the final number is grants, and we do expect cash-in grants of about $8,000. But through the Main Street program, we also anticipate probably about 12 to 15,000 of technical assistance. And we've also gotten several EPA grants that provide us with, again, technical assistance on the order of probably $25,000 to $30,000 this previous year, and we expect about that much this coming year to help us with environmental studies on those property transactions that we anticipate coming up. So we've got a fair amount of assistance that we're leveraging in the terms of free money. So is any questions on that? Yeah.
Where's, in the financial position, maybe you already assume that it's spent, is the 500 for,
Yeah, so this number, I assume that the 500 for the mill is already spent. It will come out of 2019, but it just made it easier to not have
I
those
understand,
big
I
numbers
just wanted
for
to ask.
everything, so. And the same thing with the Birch purchase,
Okay.
so, yeah, good question. Any other questions?
Matt, when did you say the closing was scheduled, the 28th?
28th, correct,
of September?
yes. 2018.
Thanks for clarifying, just for the record.
The way things have gone, we need to make sure that's specified. So the way that we operate is that we generate a work plan that's based around those same 4 points. I don't have an updated version for you today because we just went through it last Thursday with the board. But basically we identify all the different things that we want to accomplish and then break that down into individual tasks that need to happen under that. So we're in the process of updating this, but basically the board didn't change a whole lot from what we did last year. So kind of continuing on the same track largely. But I will get into a couple of new initiatives that we're looking at exploring. And all of these did receive favorable feedback from the board at our work session last week. First one we talked about was enhanced corner plantings. And the idea behind this is to really amp up the plantings at the corners in downtown. And I think this could be part of our crosswalk enhancement. They could merge a little bit. But we have had conversations with Eric Lucas on how that might work. He gave us an estimate of about $10,000 per intersection. And so that's the number that we have to work off of at this point. We don't have a specific design, but the board thought it was a good idea to go ahead and move forward with that. This is one of those areas where we could use potentially some of those DOLA grants from Main Street. We have a $5,000, what they call a mini grant, so it's not competitive. It's allocated to us and we get to use it as we see fit, provided it meets their guidelines. So we're thinking that this may be a good option for those funds. And then we'll see how well it's received. If it's a good thing, maybe we extend it to the other 2 blocks either in subsequent years or not quite sure where that might go, but that's something that the board wants to explore in the coming year. The next one is exploration of the lodging tax. So a lot of what you've heard us talk about are beautification to the downtown and marketing of the downtown. Well, both of those items are things that potentially could benefit from a lodging tax. And so the board isn't necessarily, we don't know if we're the ones to spearhead it necessarily, but we're interested in having the conversation. And so the idea of exploring the lodging tax, facilitating a roundtable discussion, I think is the action item that we would see. And Main Street through DOLA would be able to provide us with a facilitator to kind of help that discussion. So we see it as a low-cost way to kind of get that initiative maybe started down the road. So
Are you thinking town-wide or just in the district if you got a hotel?
I believe it would be town-wide. Yeah.
Have to be.
So, next item is actually a carryover from the previous year's plan, more of a coordinated streetscape plan. So looking at Main Street and identifying Do we take over the lights? Currently, the pedestrian lights are Excel owned, but if we wanted to add hanging planters or speakers for music or additional signs, Excel is a little hard to work with in terms of adding those items. So the idea would be to explore what a streetscape would look like and how we would get there as far as financing. Next item is destination branding, and this is actually another program that Colorado Main Street provides, and it's a conversation for the board about how to talk about what we do and communicate the benefits of the DDA, but it also has a component of it that is visual and how do you brand yourselves. We've got a brand already that is functioning for our organization. So we've got our board brand, but we don't necessarily have a destination brand for downtown Windsor, which is an important concept of if we're getting into attracting people downtown, that's a positive thing to have. So again, this is a no-cost item or low cost for us to host this workshop. And basically it'll provide us with some ideas and guidance on some things that we might be able to do. And then the final thing is the cottage district discussion. So we've got this group of homes, home businesses that are a little bit different than the traditional downtown Main Street buildings. And so I've gotten a number of calls from the businesses in those areas, and I've been struggling with how does the DDA really help those businesses and those entities in that area. And it seems like we could help to create a discussion about where they're headed in the future. It could be almost a sub-district within our district of a series of those home-based businesses that are really cute and have an attractive atmosphere to them. That could provide us with a different something to offer and really leverage the character that Windsor has as a small town. And so, this was kind of a harebrained idea that I came up with, and the board said, well, yeah, you might have something there. Let's see where it goes. And so again, this is a potential Main Street technical assistance service that they can bring in. Somebody to help us kind of have that conversation and say, is this a plan? What is it? But ultimately it's a long-range discussion for us to think about how do we serve those businesses better. We mentioned the concept of growth of the district, and is it north, is it south? I think this could end up being our model for long-range planning, as far as kind of looking at different sectors of where we might grow in the future, and using that to kind of grow into a more larger long-range vision for downtown. So kind of a first step to that end, but kind of getting us going. So any questions here? Yeah.
I have to say that I love the idea of music downtown.
Okay. Great.
Well, if you've ever gone, I don't.
Well, it's just like country.
No. But it would be okay if it was.
So interestingly enough, one of the benefits of being part of the Main Street program, and both Dan and Christy have been able to go to the National Main Street Conference. I sat through a session where there's a vendor that provides speakers, and you can basically program it through Wi-Fi. You don't have to have them all wired and things like that. So that may be something, I'll bring it up at our next meeting as we're talking.
Well, with the all-weather speakers and stuff where all the planners are, you could actually put one of those all-weather speakers in one of those, and it just provides that ambient noise to drown out the semis.
So we'll have to bring that up. Actually, that was one that I was gonna throw on the list, and it just slipped.
I think it adds to the coziness of downtown,
Yeah.
It does.
So, great
the
idea.
overall ambient.
I like the cottage district, I don't know what it's gonna be, but I like something.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like, if you're underutilized or underdeveloped or whatever that is. I like the
Matt,
idea.
I'm sorry. The cottage businesses that I've talked to, are most of them south of Main Street?
There's
Walnut.
mostly south, I think there's still a handful on the north side, maybe 3, 4.
North of
Simply
Main.
Home, Yuppie Puppy.
And I think there may still actually be a house, an
Yeah.
actual residence,
Mhm.
in that stretch, so, but,
Could that stretch to the homes that direction as well, like if we made, whatever happens?
yeah. Yeah, actually, my first sort of formulation of the concept was the homes to the east that are not part of our district.
Right.
So, I think it could be something that we replicate, then the other direction as well.
But
So.
the idea of expanding the DDA or Cottage District north or south, those are easier, more walkable neighborhoods. So a lot of potential there, I think.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Have you talked about expanding to Walnut or possibly up Sixth and Seventh Street? That's
Um,
still CBD.
Yeah, we
Up
have
there.
not had very super specific discussions other than, kind of off the cuff of, gosh, where do we go from here? It hasn't been an organized, effort to say,
Sure.
how do we plan? So I think that's what we're sort of dipping our toe into is, all right.
Well, you might tell them what it takes to expand. Property owners have to be
It's very
agreeable
difficult,
to
right.
wanting to be
Right.
part of that expansion. So it's not just something that the DDA can
Just do.
Explore,
Yeah.
they can explore it.
can create the boundary
Can be
and say,
approved.
okay, here's what we're doing, but you have to have agreeable
Concurrence.
property owners.
Yeah.
Have we ever looked at, it seems like most communities around us would have a lodging tax, are we?
We tried it once,
We've tried it twice.
Okay.
twice.
And last time,
When's
it
the
was
last
very
time?
close, is what I
Yeah.
understand.
When was
I'm
that?
still a proponent, I think we're missing the boat as a community
Yeah,
by
I-
not having a lodging
I
tax.
think-
Now that the border house isn't,
Yeah, it seems like what
Lodging,
voters
that
want, any tax they wanna know, what's it gonna be spent on? And so, that would be the challenge, I think, to come together and figure out what will the community support? And I think it's gonna be some of the benefits to the entire community.
Mhm.
Well, and the lodging is all outlined,
Right.
except for, is it
Mark.
Super 8, the one next to Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's over on Crossroads or it's up on the interstate, so, and I'm sure they say how will it benefit, downtown development help us.
Right.
But we won't collect it at the brands, so,
You what?
we won't collect it at the brands if it's instituted.
Are you still
Maybe in the
presenting,
new
or can I
hotel
ask?
district.
Yeah, I've got a few more.
Oh, Go ahead,
Is
that's
it-
right, I wanted to ask Dan something, but that's okay. I'll ask him.
if I can add something, one thing that Matt and I, when we were at the national conference in Kansas City, we went to a session that was really helpful of, now that we're getting the downtown economically expanding and everything, we can start to go after and work more closely with Stacy, the economic development person here at the town. What type of businesses do we want to attract? So if we say Choice City Meats over in Fort Collins, let's go over, let's sell downtown Windsor to them. Let's find businesses that we want to come into Windsor that not only work well with our mission statement, but also is a great fit. So we're working on that this next year too.
We were having a side conversation here about lodging tax, I'm sorry. I want to make one point to it, and I've said this before. I don't think 3% is worth going to a fight over. I think if we ever get to that point, let's do at least 5 or something. Other communities are 8, 10, 12, 14%. If we're gonna go, that's probably outrageous for Northern Colorado, but I mean, we should be at least what other surrounding communities are doing. It's not worth a political fight for 3%. Just editorial comment.
I have a question before you have the numbers, it's anecdotal, but I had someone at the Harvest Festival very concerned with people at Boardwalk Park and, out of town, blah, blah. Do you guys hear any of that? I mean, I would imagine you want more people at that park to come to your businesses. Have you heard anything about the type, I don't want to say it, but
Yes, as a business owner down there.
Yeah,
a
as
lot.
business owners, we hear it all the time.
You're hearing what, just complaints that people
Yeah.
from out of town are down there?
Yeah, that it's not really a Windsor community park anymore, that it's more of, a lot of out of town
And
people.
it's doors when you leave.
Camping on the beach out there. you
And they
know.
don't spend money?
Right.
No.
None of them.
Alright,
Alright,
thanks.
so, kind of moving into on deck of, 2019 budget. So, our draft budget is, largely the same as last year. Our facade program remains the largest expenditure at 120,000. So we did make a big push to get out information on the facade program this year. And we've had a lot more calls on it. I think next year we'll see the utilization rate of that go up and continue to increase.
Well, Matt, I just wanna say, I think the two projects you guys did, both are fantastic. I mean, really, when you go along the alley, I mean, seeing Chimney Park from the backside, it's like, whoa. You know, and the same thing with the old bank, so I think you guys already have a nice advertisement, because the two projects that have been done are so, you know, so transformative. I think it's gonna, you guys are gonna spend all your money next year.
Yeah, and that's the goal. You know, we're not here to bankroll it, we're here to get it into the community and functioning to generate more excitement. So definitely continuing that. The wayfinding installation is really the biggest change in our budget. This $50,000 is basically the increase from last year to this year that you'll see when I compare the numbers for you. We do have the Park Late program, which basically what we're thinking is offering a stipend of sorts to property owners that open up their property for public parking after hours. So haven't landed on exactly what that is yet, but you know, it's just a bit of an incentive. The corner plantings in this budget, I do have it reflected at 7,500. We probably will increase that to the 10,000 to reflect the number from Eric Lucas. And then splitting that 5,000 from grants, 5,000 from our budget. And no change to public relations. We're gonna keep that budget the same. Contract services, studies, and other consulting, as well as board development, all stay the same, and those numbers are listed up there. So, any questions on kind of our proposal for this coming year?
The wayfinding, I think I heard you say that in plan is that would be a joint venture with the town?
Yeah,
So
so,
the 50,000, you're looking at that as the DDA part, and then the town would kick in? Is that the thought?
so I think it's still to be determined. I think the town has some money that either has been talked about in past years to do some signs on the outside of town, or outside of downtown. So I would anticipate that the 50,000 would be just downtown signs. And I guess I'm not.
Our
100%
budget
sure.
in 2018 had a $100,000 placeholder for that.
The two community.
Right, and so, and I think it's more electronic, more updated signs. We wanted to, when I asked staff about it, I said, well, we're kind of standing by for the DDA, they're doing the wayfinding thing, so, the budget for 2019 that hasn't been proposed to the board yet would still have that $100,000 placeholder in there for that. So you can adopt it, change it, or whatever, but it would be that 100,000 would flow through.
We don't need to, what, you're suggesting that we hold off the two entry signs to the community until we see what DDA wants to do with wayfinding?
Yeah, I thought we were waiting on, because they had a
Waiting
greater-
to see the big, the
Okay.
plan that comes back out of wayfinding, because
Okay,
she's
to
doing,
coordinate,
she's
okay.
doing more than just what the
Okay.
DDA wants, she's
Yeah.
looking at from a whole total.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like a
perspective.
gateway monument.
Because we went in on that,
Trailheads,
study
the
together.
trail, all kinds of stuff, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Uh,
or no,
I
we
think the DDA's paying for it.
pay for the study, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think we wanna make a big capital expenditure and then have it come back and say, yeah, that's not really our colors anymore.
We want to coordinate everything.
Yeah, we wanna make sure
Okay.
everything looks
Yeah,
kind
it's just, you know, we've been talking about for years, you know, my
Yeah.
patience, but I'm just always shallow, but, you
And that's,
I wanna spend $100,000 next year, buddy. Hey, stand by, we'll get this
know.
on.
Okay.
and that's exactly the point, you know, you can't really direct people to downtown without signs outside of downtown. So it made sense to us to have a cohesive plan, even though the signs might have a different character in the downtown. So,
I understand.
Well, and just so you know, though, there was a sign committee less than 8 years ago that expanded about
8 years.
$200,000 to $400,000 on
Okay.
the signs that you see in place now, and we spent like 2 years studying where those went. So I think this is like the next thing after that, so.
I'd say I did the survey, and, you know, I'm a real proponent of public art, and it doesn't have to be a $500,000 bronze statue. There's a lot of things in public art. You're talking about dressing up the light poles and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, and the wayfinding survey gave some really great examples of how I think you can use signs to beautify a community, and that's part of the charm and character of a town, that small town feel. And, you know, so
Well, and I think,
I'm on board with
I
it.
think the other thing is Google Maps. I don't know, I haven't looked at, one thing, I'm on the Poudre River Trail Board, and
Yeah.
I looked at Fort Collins and some other communities where their trailheads and trails are on Google Maps, but ours aren't, so we're working on that from a trail standpoint. It'd be interesting to see, could we get downtown to show up on Google Maps as a destination? Because people ride their bikes and they see what's on Google Maps, it shows them on the way from here to there, everybody has
Sure.
Siri, you know?
What's in between? Yeah.
And if it shows up on their phone as they're driving by a few times, then hey, I'll stop in.
excellent, yeah, that's a great idea. So in terms of the public art and the character and things like that, Dan and I have talked a lot, and this goes back to the streetscape plan as far as what the ultimate streetscape looks like. I think we don't want to have just a cookie cutter out of a catalog streetscape.
Right.
It needs to be something that says, this is Windsor, we're a unique community, we've got character. And so I think that's a prevailing value that I think all of us have, frankly, on both boards, is to make sure that we're leveraging Windsor as a unique place, so.
And it's what prompted us to hire her.
It is.
Other than there were 2 or 3 other proposals, but she was the most creative, I think, uniquely creative
Yeah.
that we saw. That's why we wanted her to be part of that program.
Can I ask a question that's in the weeds?
Sure.
For looking at the budget. And I'll look at this while I say this, cause this involves Matt. But no, I was looking where it says contract service, where it talks about executive director, and it says in 2016, 75,000, 2017, 20,000, and then the budget for 2018, 77, 43. What happened in 2017, I guess is what I'm getting at. I mean, it's only
Oh.
showing 20,000.
You know what, that was a accounting, not allocating the invoices to the right line item issue. So we had, basically our legal services and our, my services
Flip-flop.
got all
Okay,
mixed
okay.
together, and so it was more of just the reflection.
I figured it had to be something to
Yeah.
that effect when the
So,
legal was.
Yeah, we're working to make sure that we're coding things more effectively towards what the budget is. So each of my invoices comes in with what line item out of the budget it reflects, to try and address that issue. But,
Okay.
it's ongoing
I was
communication.
just trying to address the dip on the number
Yeah.
there. Wait,
Yeah.
what happened?
Good question, so.
And Matt, I've got a question. So when you're calculating your revenue for next year, and specifically the sales tax and the increment, what are you doing to project that growth? Are you trying to figure in like the mills coming in, we know we're gonna have, or are you just more averaging in?
Yeah, it's more of the averaging in. So just as a reflection, the mill sales tax will come back to the town through our incentive agreement. So the DDA will not see that increase on our side. But yeah, we haven't tried to even project those projects because usually they do lag a little bit. So the increase is basically just kind of taking a straight line projection of what we've seen the last 3-4 years and extrapolating
Just
from
putting a
there.
percentage on it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so, anything else? All right. So 2019 projections, so we're anticipating that, again, a carryover of $240,000 from this fiscal year. That's anticipating we spend like we think we will through the end of the year. Our anticipated revenue of about $450,000. The budget that you're presented with here is about just shy of $400,000. It has increased from last year. I believe it was about 360. So again, the lion's share of that increase is the $50,000 for wayfinding. So kind of a capital expenditure. And so if all of these numbers hold true, at this time, at the end of next year, we would anticipate about $290,000. So we are not budgeting everything that we anticipate to come in, so it is a conservative budget that we are presenting. And it allows us some wiggle room to deal with opportunities as they arise. So 2018 carryover plus the anticipated revenues minus the anticipated budget expenditures for 2019 equals that remaining amount. So with that being said, we've got some leveraging opportunities that are coming up. The American Legion and so again, I wasn't sure if there was going to be any press in the room, so we can speak in more
Oh, but
detail.
you are being video,
We're
you are
online.
being streamed live.
Oh, okay, well,
Just so you
great,
know.
so.
So we'll just wave.
That's right. So, American Legion, we are having conversations with about potential location to a different building. So that is certainly a project that is up and coming as part of the backlot project. We do have discussions that will need to take place with the town board and the DDA board about how do we participate in facilitating that move. So I'm not 100% sure yet what that looks like because obviously the Legion's got some decisions to make, but things appear to be on a positive track. But we would anticipate that our facade program could be a good option for assistance and or tax increment if there is space in that building that is subleased to a for-profit business. That could be a way for us to assist with that program. The backlots development is going to probably heat up here in the coming months as well. Thanks to Ian for his diligence in working with the area of unknown ownership. So that is moving forward and will likely be looking at the utility undergrounding as a big project under the backlots next year. So things like what the surface looks like, connection into the buildings, working with the utility companies, lots and lots of details there to make sure that we're juggling and figuring out. As well as the construction of the enhanced alley. So the upper image is Fort Collins and what they've done recently. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, I wouldn't anticipate that anywhere in the back lot alley would be anywhere near this tight. In fact, the measurements that we have would indicate that it's about 3 times that width. So, but it does show how folks could be able to accommodate deliveries still in those areas while still allowing traffic to move through in that backlot alley area. So more design discussions to come, but yeah, lots of activity on that. The other 2 components of the backlot, we do anticipate moving forward with relocating the parking that is currently behind the 400 block of Main Street to the Birch parcel. So the thought process behind that is that it's more centrally located to be able to help development on the town public works site, as well as the development that's happening in the 400 block. So providing for actually even more parking than is currently provided for on the existing DDA lot. So we will need to look at figuring out how we pay for the cost of that next step in parking. And we have described it as a temporary solution. I don't think that the gravel lot there in that location is the final, but we need to start then thinking about what that next step is as far as a permanent parking solution for downtown. So we do anticipate applying for a conditional use approval from the town to approve that as a gravel lot for a temporary period of time. The conditional use approval on the current DDA lot is set to expire in April of next year. So we've got to do something. We don't really have a choice in terms of the current lot. So that's something that we're looking at moving forward to. And then the other upper image is the town public works lot where the Legion is currently. And so looking at how to facilitate the development of a mixed-use building at that location. Likely will include residential above it in that location. So yeah, lots and lots of moving pieces. We've got environmental assessment grants out for the Legion as well as the 4th Street property. So just a whole lot of details there. So any questions on that section? All right. So I do anticipate that we will be back with the town board very soon talking about how that deal gets structured to move forward with the backlot development. And then on deck, we see the Brunner property as being kind of the next large project that we shift our focus to. They've got some exciting things that they're considering, and we've already had some initial discussions with them about the tools that EDA can provide. And the board was excited about that, and we'll look to probably shift as the mill slides off our key initiatives as it gets developed and into that development stage, and shift our focus to the Bruners and how we can help them with their future endeavors. So that's some anticipated leveraging for this coming year. I can't give you 100% of an idea of what resources will be needed, but I can guarantee you that we will be having more discussions. So, all right, that's what I have. So any other broad questions regarding the DDA?
I think I'm gonna direct this to Dan,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Dan, you know, that this last election, just about all members who ran for the board are concerned about traffic. Traffic on Main Street, traffic on 7th Street, traffic all over town, and driven by the constituents. You know, the constituents are really upset. So I wanna know what the downtown merchants' feeling is about, first of all, the parking situation on Main, and also the traffic on Main.
Well, the traffic on Main would be more if we could eliminate the truck traffic. That's the worst. Not only because they don't, I mean, most of them are pretty good about allowing the pedestrians to walk by, but it's hard for people when they angle park to get out and to get back into the flow. Because, and then, I don't know what time Vestas, I think it's about 3:30, Vestas has the train that comes and unloads, and that just blocks it all the way to King Soopers. So, and then the other issue, I wish the high school would have thought, somehow, I don't know if they could have, but when they pick up their kids at the high school, that is backed up all the way to Main Street too,
Yeah.
trying to get in and get around and that. So, but I think if you did something with the trucks, that would really help.
So the regular car traffic doesn't really concern them that much as far as.
No, because I did like a handout, I offered a 5% discount for my customers walking in the door if they would just figure out the survey of how did you find out about us. 90% of it is driving by. So I hate to cut that off. So if you bypass the downtown with like a belt line like in Madison, Wisconsin, that would hurt, I think. But the trucks, if you could just eliminate that pressure, that would be nice.
And maybe slow it down just a tiny bit.
Yeah,
There's been
and I
discussion
think
about-
once we do the beautification,
Speed down just a tiny bit would help a bunch.
yeah, but I think the
Pulling
visual
out.
slowing down would occur once we do the beautification.
Yeah.
More flowers, more, improve our bulb outs, that aesthetically calms people.
I've had more than one, actually several constituents complain about that 3:30 train. especially because that's right when the charter school is dismissing.
Yeah,
And anybody that's obviously on the west side of the railroad track
you're stranded.
stranded, kids are getting dismissed, kids are waiting on the curb over at the charter, you know, et cetera. That was all who was complaining were parents of the charter school because of that, and they're like, really? Couldn't it just wait a half hour or something till,
Yeah.
you know, we're through that? I mean, there's probably never a good spot between there and 6 o'clock, but I specifically had that come up because of the charter school.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something the DDA or the town or anybody can involve Vestas or, you know, I don't know. I don't know if
I don't
that's,
think it's a Vestas decision, I think it's a railroad decision.
I think it's in federal
Because
government.
even the railroad that goes through Kodak, or Carestream, they don't control when the
Right.
rail comes in, it's the rail that
Right.
controls when the rail comes in.
Switch it to 3:30 AM?
I think they have one of those too.
Yeah,
Oh, they do.
probably do.
Start at dark.
So, I have a question, the budget under the admin support by the town, do we get a bill from the town, and does it come like at the end of the year on an ongoing basis, or do we
No.
not ever, did we ever get a bill from the town, or?
So essentially, it is deducted monthly as an internal transfer, so there's not necessarily a bill that's provided, so.
And, so they already, are calculating what amount that for that
1/12.
that month or whatever, and they're just, okay, gotcha.
We could, with it.
Matt, I have just a general comment. I wanna compliment you and your board. I've been on the town board 6 years now, just to see the change and professionals, and I know slide against who's been on before, but I can really see, like, I feel like we are kind of at a tipping point now with the DDA, so. you guys
Thank
are doing
you,
a great job.
thank you. Yeah, you know, the board is fantastic to work with, you know, they provide such great leadership and vision, and it makes it really easy to do a good job, so I put it all on them, so.
Generating more money, I guess, helps
Yeah, it's
fuel it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a snowball.
Yeah, so. I do have one other thing for you guys, so we have a lot on our plate, we've got a lot on the table, and so, we are having a business appreciation, event to, you know, celebrate our businesses, but we're also combining that with, an invitation to the public to come out and find out more about some of the projects that are going on. And so October 23rd, from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Art and Heritage Center. We will have representatives from Brinkman out with illustrations to get some feedback from folks on the backlot project. The Windsor Mill, we're hoping we'll have folks out there to answer questions, as well as our wayfinding consultant to present information on that project. So please make sure you tell folks that you know might be interested to join us on the 23rd. So.
So Ian, does this board, we by resolution approve their budget? Is that, so when will that be coming? Is that a ways off? Is that in October or when?
We usually do it on the same night that we approve the town of Windsor budget.
Okay, so being like sometime in November.
There's one
December
that sends
10th
money
or
to the other, and so we would
Okay,
just set it up that way. As long, that's the pattern we've done. And it's mostly because the DDA's budget is in some way dependent, well, it's in significant way dependent on road.
And Mayor, if I could, this budget has been reviewed by my board once at our work session last week, so there may be some fine tunings still yet to take place, but generally based on the feedback that we received, it's pretty close. But I did want to just make that note that, you know, this is not the final budget that you'll likely see. And again, to Board Member Rennemeyer's comment, we will likely be moving that mill incentive payment back into 2019, just to reflect that.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there no policy on this? Or they don't sound like it? They usually are. I'm gonna double check. Just I also got.
Have a good evening.
Stains.
Good to see you again.
This is, I can find
See you.
out where to get 'em from.
I'm Brett.
I had to get some of the Windsor Summers.
Doctor.
So if we know some folks who would like to come over the counter. I'll bring some maybe to the next.
Thank you. See you later.
Okay, then moving on to our third item is a road impact fee adjustment to account for construction cost inflation. Mr. Ballstead?
Yeah, you'll recall that last year in conjunction with the roadway improvement plan, we did the 5-year update that the municipal code calls for, so, we kind of brought our fee schedule that's in the municipal code within the road impact fee ordinance in alignment with, contemporary times at that point. This is the annual update that when you don't do a 5-year update, we're supposed to do an annual update every year. And it's based on the Colorado Construction Cost Index that CDOT puts out. And based on that information that CDOT put out for the second quarter compared to the last 2 second quarters, that increase would be 10.13%. And so, I guess we wanted to get it in front of you early so that any changes in the fee schedule could be advertised and promoted early and often so that it's not a shock when any fees go up. We always like to try and give an effective date that's a few months out so that people can budget for that. So,
I think this will be a shock for the developers. John?
well, the developers are, I guess it's actually the home builders that would be paying those fees as well as any of the industrial or commercial permit fees. But they do need to budget when they're selling lots, the buying a big block of lots, they wanna have a fairly accurate permit fee, so.
Yeah, and all the costs will eventually just be flown to the home purchaser. And
Absolutely.
what was the last, it's just, we can't control, it's obviously the rate of what the costs are, right?
Right. Yeah, so based on CDOT projects and how much it actually costs them to improve road infrastructure. And you'll recall that during the downturn, the town board didn't want to pass along any increases at that time. And so we did some other things during those years and we got a little bit behind the 8 ball. And so the thought behind the annual increase is that at least we're not going to be coming to the development community with a huge increase in any one year, so.
And it looks like your chart here has it down, for the 5 quarters, it went down during 2016 timeframe. So there is precedence for this to go down as well,
Right,
if that were to happen.
yeah, if you, in the road impact fee history document that I included in the packet, you'll see the board did approve decreases in 2009 and 2010 just because of the economy and the fact that costs did go down back then.
So it's not like we ignore those times when it goes down and only come back to them when it goes up.
Right.
Scott, how reliable is the CCI compared to our road improvement costs? For example, the index is up 19% in 2018. Does that correspond to what our roadway improvement costs are?
I haven't actually compared to actual town of Windsor costs. One would assume that with the volume of work that CDOT does, they would get a fairly good rate, I guess. But that's why it's not that 19% just from 2018.
Right.
It's over a 2-year period,
Right.
so that's why it's cut in half.
I was assuming that if we build a stretch of road, it's gonna cost us 19% more than it did 2 years ago. So I'm trying to get to the point that we're not gouging the home market or anything. It's,
Right,
and in fact, it still might be less than our actual costs
right.
because we averaged over 2 years. Okay.
And when would it go into effect? As soon as after we pass the readings, or is it January?
We actually put in our January 1 of 2019, and we'd start advertising it right away to.
To give it, so everybody would know.
About 4 months.
But actually, on a road impact fee, a developer, after they can, there's a way they can get some of this money back. Don't they get some money back after they've gone in and made some improvements? They can go back in and
If they build,
request a,
if they build improvements that increase the capacity of the system, then those improvements are eligible for reimbursement.
So, for example, like on Harmony Road, we know Jeff Mark is going to, from County Road 13 to 15, widen that. He's going to do his side of the development on the north side, which is his responsibility. He's gonna also do the south side of the road, which isn't his responsibility. And he's gonna also do medians for the town, which are also not his. So he'll get reimbursed for 55% or so of that work. And then, as the south side of Harmony develops, whenever that develops, the town will get that money back. So, I think that's what you're referring to, Your Honor, is if the developer pays for it, they're eligible for reimbursement.
right.
Yeah, it's those improvements that only serve that development, like auxiliary lanes for left turns into a property, that kind of thing, that aren't eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah, a roundabout, if their development kind of triggers that roundabout, so.
Right.
And we look at this every year, correct?
Yes, we're supposed to look at it comprehensively every 5 years, which we did with the consultant last year, and now this is an annual.
So for some reason, costs go down next year, then we might do the opposite and we might bring them down a little bit,
Yeah,
potentially.
if costs go down and it's averaged over the 2 years, so it'd be the 19% and whatever this current year, it may go down, yeah.
Well, that'll be hard considering 1 year's 19%.
Yeah.
Right,
But yeah, next year's bite may not be,
Be the following year.
right.
yeah, I would think it would need to.
But there could be in future years, especially like if there would be a downturn, there's gonna be a break for them because the downturn, I would suspect, is gonna bring costs to come down a little bit too.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad we review this every year. I'm really just seeing in 1
Yes.
year that it's gone up by 20%. We don't wanna get 5 years behind this thing, so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of what happened.
We did.
We did, and it was a sticker shock.
I'm sure I had my own oops.
Yeah, that was a good interim point in time between,
So when would this ordinance come before us? Is this one ready to roll out, or
Yeah.
you wanna wait and after, if the board is moving ahead, roll this out to builders right now to get some of that feedback before you formalize it, or?
Yeah, we would want to advertise it as soon as possible, that this ordinance, based on CDOT numbers, would be for 10.13%, and, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know what kind of-
it's a resolution. I would really suggest, because really if we're gonna advertise, I think we want to adopt it sooner than later, right?
Right,
You know, because if not, we're just advertising something the board hasn't even voted on yet.
right.
So it's just a question on how much outreach the board would like us to do with everybody before we do that, to get any kind of feedback.
Yeah, we've got this list of, we've got a group email that we sent all of the roadway improvement plan and road impact fee information last year. I would anticipate we direct email it to those same people and get their input and get it scheduled.
Okay.
I know that the HBA was the big player that has contact, obviously, with all the home builders and everybody else.
Yeah, we send it to the HBA, but we also have another list that they may not be members, that they were
Right.
really the ones that were more,
I just know the HBA was one of the most outspoken ones.
yeah.
Greg Medema passed away since our last city
Right.
bound, so.
But yeah, he actually, the last increase that we had, he didn't have too much concern with it because it was within reason. But yeah,
And should we, I mean, maybe we work through Safe Built, right? I mean, we know all the builders in the town, I mean, we
Mhm.
gotta maybe get a list from them and really get the word out.
yeah,
It was the last time we announced that we were gonna be talking about this, it was miscommunicated or not thoroughly communicated is what happened, and so we enacted it and then had to kind of circle back around to explain why we had
Yeah,
done
was
what
it
we
a
had
pretty
done.
large increase?
Yeah, well,
It
yeah.
was such a large, it caught them off guard.
We hadn't raised it in how many years? It was
through the downturn, we had kind of worked on other
eight,
things.
Almost
10
10
years.
And some people didn't.
And now we were making up for it all in one shot, and so it was a shock to the
Right,
Right.
right.
development community.
Okay,
Okay.
I think everybody seems like
Yeah.
they're ready to move ahead. I don't know that we can
We're going,
I think it's,
change it otherwise, I mean, unless we
it's
want
always
to.
better to have the incremental than.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna be popular, just communication's key.
No.
Sorry to hear about Iowa State.
Scott, if we could check with
Yes.
Dennis, because I think that, Ken asked really a good question, and I would tell you, I'm certain that our costs, when we've seen paving have gone up, and we've seen it. I just hate to represent that without checking with Dennis, but I think when we get that memo, and when we look at it, we could actually show what our actual costs are going up for paving, because
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than 10%.
I'm certain that this is gonna bear out.
Yeah.
So
So that's
anyway,
good.
yeah, so we can do that, so that'd be just good, so the
Yeah.
court sees an actual cost, if for some
Yeah.
odd reason we paid less for asphalt in Windsor, then you would have that information, you could adjust it, but it doesn't seem like that's happening for us.
sure.
I'll tell you, the one big thing that home builders are dealing with nowadays is the cost of lumber. Lumber costs are through the roof right
It
now.
really
I was
is.
just doing a project and
Concrete.
I couldn't believe how much it cost, and it's hurting all the home builders that are obviously buying this stuff, like, yeah. It was the tariffs thing, was an indirect effect of it. Huh?
Tariffs aren't indirect.
No, the lumber market that was domestic said, because we know it's gonna cost a ton to import, we're gonna raise our domestic costs, cause we know we can get it, now they're kinda trying to back off on that.
Big
It's-
lumber from Canada.
Yeah, it's had a bad effect on it.
Okay, we have a fourth item here, which is future meetings as well.
Right, yeah, so Your Honor, so we've got, this next work session, we'll have two things, we'll have an update from the school district. Part of that is they're gonna, just tell you how the high school went, give you some broad things, also maybe talk about some school resource officer or officers. And then, we're gonna also talk about the organizational structure. So that's, about my 100-day mark plus or less, plus or minus, and I'd really like to talk to the board about some changes that I'd like to implement for next year. And then in October, we're gonna have all of our budget meetings. I attached in my last weekly update really what those agendas would look like. So the first one on the first, Dean and I will give you guys a really broad overview on both. Just kind of summary fund statements, this is kind of the big picture, this is where we sit with the current budget. We'll also do kind of a staffing overview as far as what's being requested, and then we'll start getting into the details. So I want to start you guys off before you get into the weeds, really, so you know, this is where we are. This is if you said, yeah, go forward with this budget as presented, we know what our beginning fund balance is, we know what our ending fund balance is, we know what this is gonna do. So we'll start out with that. We'll have every division, every department present between that meeting and the next three. And then I've got reserved that October 31st meeting as well, which is basically to come back, and I know you're not around, Paul.
October 29th or 31st.
Oh, I'm sorry, 29th, I apologize, 29th. That's going to be kind of we still have it as tentative, if the board wants it though, we can put it on. And that would be, okay, you had the overview, you've heard from every department, again, this is kind of what you heard, and do you, wanna make any changes or direct anything with the budget? So that's tentative, that's gonna be completely board prerogative on whether or not you wanna have it. But we do have a draft agenda developed just in case you say, yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more.
I hate missing a meeting, but when we have a fifth Monday, that's why months in advance I book something going, I know that week it's also my kids' fall break, it's a number of different things, it always falls on that, we always have a fifth Monday in October. But that's why I hate it, cause I don't wanna miss anything that we're talking about, especially budget related,
Well,
you know,
and
matters.
so it won't be anything new, if the board does elect, say, look, we still wanna go, we presented any information that you haven't already seen and had a chance to have input on. And again, this isn't something that we have to have, I just wanna have it there, I think that, you know, obviously the budget is one of the more important things that we'll work on during the year, so I just don't wanna shortchange it. So we've got that tentative there, and it'll be total board prerogative on whether or not you wanna have it. And obviously, even though you won't be there, if you have any thoughts, you can talk to the mayor, you can tell me, I mean.
Could we go earlier on the 22nd? I mean, I see that that's slated for 6 o'clock. Could we add extra time versus having to have the extra meeting? I'm thinking of everybody else. I'm not saying just me. I know that a lot of people cherish having that 5th Monday off is the only reason I bring it up, but you know what you wanna talk about, or is it, if it's tentative, if we even have anything that we need to talk about on that night, or I don't know.
Yeah, again, it'll just be, it'll be similar to the first meeting. The first meeting is gonna be, here's the 30,000 foot, this is, all
So it's kinda just
budgets.
recapping at the
Yeah,
end.
it will be, but again, you know, so we'll present, the overview, we're gonna also talk about kind of the board's adopted financial policies. So you guys have a debt reserve, or I'm sorry, a fund balance reserve, there's other things you've adopted. Quite frankly, right now, everything looks like it's hitting that, but, our capital improvement plan, you know, cause we have so much capital, we're actually spending more than your policy says you should spend. But I would say, well, it's a capital reserve, so I'm not sure that we really need to have that strict of a fund balance policy on it. I mean, that's what a capital fund is for, is spending, you know, one-time expenditures, but, so we'll go over those, everything in detail, and then really that last meeting on the 29th will be, okay, you've heard all the staff requests now, you've heard from every department, you know what the overview, the 30,000 foot level is. Are you comfortable with the budget? You know, is this, are we okay? You know, is this, whatever, you know? And so, I know your request, but honestly, I don't think that getting 30 minutes more on the 22nd
I agree.
will necessarily be enough. It'll either be something where, of course, yeah, let's go for it, let's have this meeting, or you know what, we're comfortable with everything that was presented, we wanna take the 29th off.
I have two questions.
Well, we still have until, we wanna put this on November 26th, the meeting agenda. So technically, we'd have up until that time
That's right.
to make
Right.
comment, adjustments, meet with you. Or, Paul, if we need, if there was, let's say, something that we felt was a real issue, we could call a special meeting between now and then too, if we had to.
Well, and I know that we gotta limit questions if we've got all these departments and we're doing them before our town board meeting. We can't necessarily get exhaustive about what we're asking and get into the weeds about each department's budget, you know, et cetera, like we might want to. So I can see the reason why the meeting on the 29th might be beneficial.
So is there no Saturday meeting?
No,
No Saturdays.
this is all
That
in
we
lieu of
never
that, that's part,
scheduled?
that's,
So that could be an option too, I mean, you know, maybe, if we had to.
that's why this is coming as a shock to the system, because the last couple of years I've been on the board, this isn't.
I know it's different, and that's what I'm trying to let you guys see the agendas and feel comfortable with the process. Yes, Miles?
Are we gonna get to see the capital improvement plan again? Or, I mean, we just all agree on that, or is there gonna be further discussion on that?
We're gonna do, Dean and I, we're gonna give you guys a quick synopsis
Okay.
again of that on the first Monday.
Okay.
And again, it could come up on that 29th as well.
And are we gonna see you gonna present us with a budget for us to review,
Yes.
like all at once at the beginning, or is this gonna be piecemealed out to us?
No, I would like to get you the entire document, the entire draft document beforehand. So we're going to present it week by week, kind of piecemeal, but you'll have the whole document.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I appreciate having it broken up. I think, you know, there's enough complexities within the budget and opportunities to do things, so it's good to kind of take it by sections and really delve into it a little deeper, so I think that's good. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be going on the 24th, because I'm really concerned about, not concerned, but I'm seeing some opportunities for restructuring our administrative, our departments and so forth, but I'll catch up with all that when I get back.
Yeah, so is one of these meetings, so we're gonna hear from all these department heads. You're gonna give us kind of the overlay to start, to kick it off, where everything is gonna come from. Then we're gonna go through all the department heads. But there isn't then a meeting where we all come back around the table. So I think we really need that.
Well, and that is the
Everybody, all the
29th.
departments.
But I don't know, I may be gone on the 29th though too. And you're gone on the 24th, so I don't know.
29th of October.
No,
Yeah.
he.
24th of September, next Monday.
Yeah, I'm gone next Monday.
Oh, next
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, but I'll back.
Yeah, so that's really what the 29th was, is really just coming back around and just kind of debriefing and seeing.
So the 29th was gonna be, well, the 22nd. Is that still just one department presenting, or? I don't remember what was on the agendas. I don't have it
I
memorized, I'm
could
sorry.
look it up really quick.
And the 22nd, how
Yeah, it just
close are they
says
to having? a
budget meeting, work
total
session.
Well,
picture?
when I sent out that weekly update,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had the breakdown in each one, and honestly, I think I don't think it's one, I think it's a lot of smaller departments
Okay,
that are going through
okay.
that date. And a lot of these,
and
you know,
what
we
you're
do
saying
have
is
like,
you might wanna see the whole thing.
Well, I mean, I'm just
together
saying, we
again.
normally, this board has taken in a good 6 to 8 hours to go through a budget discussion. I appreciate not having to spend an entire Saturday there, but I have concerns that getting it through, and then we only have an hour in a work session because we're gonna have to break, because as to what Paul said, we are gonna have to scoot to a meeting. There may still be a lot of unanswered questions or other comments or things to work
Yeah.
through. At what point do we get to do that?
well,
And so-
the first, the 15th and the 29th though, there's no evening meeting, so there's really no
That's what I was
gap on
looking at.
time on the.
Yeah, so on those
Between
two.
2 or 3 hours.
Well, maybe we add to those nights, I mean,
That's what I'm
maybe,
wondering. We start earlier.
Get dinner and just.
maybe we start at 5 or 5:30 and
Yeah.
go till 9:30 if it took that or something like that
Mhm.
versus.
Then if we can get through it, then we might not need
Yeah.
the 29th.
That might be a good idea.
Well, especially if she's also looking to maybe be gone on the
And
29th.
that weekend before I'm getting back on the 29th, I'll be out of town the weekend before. I get back on, so I can do the 29th if we have to,
Okay.
but I'll be getting back into town on that day.
Are you going?
So like if you wanted to meet on whatever that Saturday is before the 29th, guess it'd be the 27th, I would be out of town then.
I will second though what Christie's sentiments were though about, I don't wanna be pinched on us
Right.
being able to get, you know, cause I will say that one of the benefits of all of us being around the table for a Saturday was if we were talking about an issue that involved PD, you know, Chief was there to say, hey, this could involve me this way, you know, or whatever, so it was kinda nice to have the.
If something came up with Parks and Rec.
Yes, if there was, you know, if Public Works was affected by Parks and Rec, that we had
Right.
Eric there as well, and maybe all department heads still attend all of these, even if they're not on
And
the.
Shane, you're working with all the department heads now, right? I mean, you've already worked with them, so
Right.
some of that may have already, I mean, they've probably communicated with each other through you.
Yeah, but
Well,
we'll have
it-
questions that might.
But if we had
Require
questions, yeah, I got you.
I can see the merits to do it both ways, I think we might just probably give this a chance and then at the end of it, kind of
Well,
evaluate it,
and
say,
right
is this
now,
more
we-
effective?
We'll know if it worked or didn't.
Yeah, or, you know.
Yeah, and so I know this is different, and I appreciate your kindness in letting us try this differently. But I do believe that the way that we're gonna have this structured, you guys are gonna have chances for questions. So there's a lot of like well, we've only got 10 minutes for comms, well, comms is pretty straightforward. You know, it's gonna be, I've gone through these where really 10 minutes is too much time because there's just not a whole lot of change.
Would it be too much to ask, and I know some department heads could be watching, but I mean, to have all of the department heads in all 3 or 4 of these meetings in case there's a topic that comes up? I don't think it requires anything more than maybe the department head to be there, but it may help faster answer the question, you know, if one, budget of, you know, could affect another one, et cetera, cause we've had that come up, and that's what made all of us in one room kinda hashing this out, and it taking 6 to 8 hours to do it.
I think that's asking a little too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just
because-
throwing it out there
because
'cause this
there's
is
too
like-
many- I mean, there's way too many meetings. I think, let's see how this goes, and if there are those questions like that, maybe they all need to come at whatever this next,
Okay.
whatever our back to.
I'm not trying to make any of them upset at me by now, but.
Well, and
Well,
if,
it's
if
for
October
them, too.
29th doesn't work for folks, I mean, right now, we don't have anything scheduled on November 19th. I mean, we've
Right, I
got,
was looking at.
we've got other places, you know,
Right.
November 12th, we're closed, Veterans Day, which is, I'm sure gonna be a nice release for everybody, but also it's a lacking meeting, but, you know.
We have met on Veterans Day previously too. It was a holiday to the town, but we came in to meet.
Okay.
But I'm not suggesting we do that, I'm just saying, you know, that, hey,
You have
we have,
options, yeah.
we have done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't really have to formally approve the budget.
It would be the second or the
November
meeting in
28th.
December, so it'll be two
December, yeah.
readings.
So we've got some time, and
Yeah,
if there
I
is
think
an
we do.
issue. Yeah, so I think you're right, I think we go with this and see what we are, I appreciate, we won't be there on the 29th, but if we still have questions.
We have the month of November to
We
still
still
hash
have
through
time,
things
right,
before we
which I
get to
think-
that
yeah.
point, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like, great, if we have to go longer on those non-meeting nights, just work session only, let's just.
right,
Yeah,
Right.
I've tried to schedule the bigger departments, the ones like Parks and Rec, that
PD.
can go on. Yeah, try to schedule them around those.
Yeah, we don't have big
those
ones.
nights. Yeah,
And I don't want anything that I say to be a rebuke of the way you're trying to do it or anything. I don't want you to look at that in that context at all. Because I know that everybody's weekend is precious, especially department heads and all of that too. So that has always been something, we've all kind of grimaced at the long, all-day Saturday, you know, meeting and stuff. So I don't deter from that. So that's why we're just asking all these questions.
no, I've got it, and I'd say, one, you know, I respect the board wants to make sure you guys are getting all the information for the budget, that's your prerogative, and I get that. But I tell you that this isn't just about Saturday, this is about, I think, for the board to be able to take, because again, I would say, if we've got a $58 million budget, let's go for 10 hours. I don't know how at 2:30 in the afternoon, we're getting a lot of
Right.
focus here.
Right.
And so, you know, I think this is gonna be a lot more qualitative, that you guys will walk away with a better understanding of how this budget is constructed than you've had in the past.
right.
So it's different, it's pieced out, but this is not just, if this were just about Saturday, we just pull the Band-Aid and show up on Saturday.
Oh, sure.
It's not that big of a deal. But
So are all those meetings gonna be held here?
Yes,
Are they gonna all be televised?
yes.
Okay. We just have not had, like, when we had the
Never had
budget
televised
discussion, it was not
meetings
televised, it was open meeting, of course.
Well, you know, and I think that's great, I think that, you know, really get it out to the public, I mean, you know, I think people would care more about the budget if they knew that, you know, when is my park gonna get a new playground, or when am I gonna get a sidewalk here, or anything else, they knew that really those decisions are made in the budget. You know, people just say, God, it looks so boring, I don't wanna go to that, but, you know, that's where a lot of these decisions.
Well, we
are
had
made.
the media sit in. We'd have the Windsor Now, you know, that would come to that work session day, and they were there all day long, typing away. So it wasn't like we didn't, you know, we were trying to obviously close it
Right,
off,
yeah,
and it was
public
still
meeting.
welcome. That's
Are
right.
they gonna present up there like a normal presentation so we can see?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more, Steph I've talked to, it'll be a little bit more high level, like, you know, PowerPoint kind of a thing. It won't be line by line, it'll
Yeah,
just
no.
be more.
Could it be up in the chambers? Are they gonna be upstairs?
No, he said it here.
Right.
Will you do it in here?
Yeah, I was planning on
Okay,
saying.
I just was asking if it would be easier.
So it is 5:30, really the earliest that we can start, is that, with everybody's schedule, is that about as early as we can get here?
I can do earlier, but these guys
I
have.
mean, I could do earlier with
I-
that.
If I know it in advance.
Right.
Yeah, with notice, yeah.
Cause I could talk to Steph about that too, you know, I've tried to respect, you know, just with your working schedules, not starting before then, but, if we're really trying to stretch these out a little bit and get some time, I mean, we could start, if there's no rule, we could start the work session at 4 or 4:30, well, you know, whenever you wanna do it to really make, again, I think maybe if we're going 3 hours hot and heavy on a budget, that's probably about as far as we wanna go, cause after that, I think we're gonna just start losing some concentration.
Yeah.
Well, if it's a non-meeting night,
We don't really need to start it
we
early.
don't have to start early, if you're gonna cap it at 3 hours.
Right.
True.
I block off Monday nights, so
That's-
whether it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever, we've talked about that, so.
Yeah.
On those non-meeting nights, I'd say we go till, you know, we allow that
Sure.
extra time if we need it.
That's the plan.
Yeah, possible start early, the people who have jobs that they can.
Okay, well, let me talk to Dean tomorrow and just kind of, fill out the schedule a little bit more. So like I say, it's really just kind of we've got 4 meetings that are really substantive around the budget, and then that 5th one, just kind of like, is there anything else we need to re-review, board, is there anything you're not comfortable with, or maybe, so,
When do we get a copy of it?
that's a great question.
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah,
Let me
we're
know.
still,
The week before, I assume.
yes, it should be the week before. Right now, we're still going. Tomorrow I have my last, maybe I have one on Wednesday, but I'm trying to finish up, all my departmental budget meetings this week. I wanna get one more draft from Vicky, because there's been, we've made a lot of changes as we've gone through, as you might imagine. And so I just kinda wanna see when we're doing all these things, I can go back and kinda geek out and try to calculate what we've done, but I really need to see the overall document. So I want one more nice intimate time with it, and then, once we get that, we'll get that kind of draft out to the board.
When have we normally seen it?
The week before.
About a week before.
About a
Usually
week before.
advance.
Yeah, that's what I-
Okay,
Okay,
anything else?
no, ma'am.
And then our October 2nd meeting with Well County has been changed, I think. It's gonna be put off again till November
Sixth, November sixth.
sometime.
So a few of you had responded to that. Does that work for everybody? Should I just let?
I didn't reply to all for the Main
No, they're
Street.
hosting it,
I just applied
at least that was on the
there.
previous calendar at Water Valley.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I
no.
just have the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, but I can work with Eric if they conflict, so wouldn't want, that's the only thing I have later that evening, or I could do dinner later.
You're excused.
Yeah, so,
Excuse. You can really skip it, or-
Pre-cap versus walkout.
or you can skip
yeah,
it later.
yeah, so I think Eric would understand it.
You know.
I could give him my town board report ahead of time.
Sure.
And I don't know what's the civic service day that's on here for
An
November
invitation to go to
17th?
a game or something?
The CSU football game?
missed
Oh, right. Yeah, I think that's exactly what that is. I think that, they're recognizing public
17th.
service
Oh,
at CSU.
I think you get to go down in the field. The
Okay.
mayor's.
I don't know, I guess,
Wasn't there tickets available or something? But there was a
That was supposed to
deadline?
be, there was like an announcement, I think.
Yeah, I missed the deadline or something.
I never
don't-
saw,
I don't know.
I never saw anything for the tickets,
I didn't either, so maybe,
just that the event was occurring.
Who's putting it on?
that's why it's on the calendar, but I'm not sure I ever saw any follow-up to that.
Oh, for elected
Yeah.
officials?
Like, what was
Civic-
it, like, are we
civic-
going?
Because it sounded
Or
like all civic servants were, with some of the mayors and folks would be down in the
I
field.
thought
Yeah,
the mayor was gonna be on
I remember
first.
reading something.
Right.
Yeah, that meeting that
So
we
obviously
went
none of
to.
us.
We did, cool.
At
I'd like to go.
Campus
It's
Stadium.
gonna drive away the public, they don't want that decision.
When we went down and took a picture for that,
Yeah,
that was all part of the civic service
This is
day.
also,
That's what I understand, that, I don't know if they've actually.
maybe is this a mix, is this wrong maybe then, this date? Did we already do this when we went down?
No, I think that we
to
took
The
that?
actual game, I think, is what's on there.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I think we took the picture and that's part of the promotional event for civic service, so.
Oh,
we
gotcha.
should check into it though, see what's available.
Well, if you could just, I
Yeah.
don't know, it's not ringing a bell that
Yeah,
I said yes or no, or exactly what
Yeah.
it was. so.
I'll follow up with
There
the
was a
board tomorrow.
deadline, though, I know that, cause I
Okay.
missed it.
When was it supposed to be? What game was it, or weekend?
The game
I'm
was the
pulling it up
17th,
right
but I
now.
don't know, I don't remember who they're playing.
It's,
I don't know.
I'll have it in a second.
See, she's not playing football this year.
Yeah, they are, they're just playing one out of 4 games.
Oh, I'm so sad.
1 out of 4. Nebraska
That's
hasn't
a
shown up yet.
portfolio, so you don't use one that's 10 years
I
old.
couldn't believe you gave him crap about the Cyclones.
You
Yeah, he's like, oh, let's have a-
He had that right, because every time I give him crap, he always comes back about
Hey,
Nebraska.
Miles.
Yeah, Oklahoma, so Troy.
That's an inter-neighbors rivalry.
I can see it.
So it was
I
November.
didn't even watch it, so.
I did watch it.
No, I know what that is.
Oh.
I need to find
Okay,
out the
so
serial
okay.
number. I
Oh,
know
you know what you need?
17th, right?
That's why they can't do October
See, I gotta.
2nd,
It's,
because of that Excel Energy invite.
Well, give me the wrong
with-
generation.
Excel Energy wants to
So-
come here.
It must have
Did
been
you see
one
that?
that was just
Yeah, I saw
sitting
that at
around.
6 from Lucas.
So November
That's what
17th,
I'm
Yeah.
thinking too. He said we got, well, we
I'm
got the same one.
guessing.
it's a noon
Yeah, this
football
is-
game.
Well,
Well,
that's
and
my personal one.
The 6th of November is also election day.
That is, yes.
Oh, that's right.
And that's the big, it's a big one.
Underneath that, and like they were gonna
Okay,
get
well,
back
this
to
won't
us on
tell
the
me.
tickets.
But,
Right, but then I never saw anything. I don't
Instead of at home watching
Yeah, you
the
guys are
pictures.
all-
It's Utah State,
Actually,
it's
fine.
noon
I should've
game on
brought it,
November
sorry.
No, that's
17th.
okay, so let me just
Yeah.
look,
What's the temperature gonna be? I went to one game last year, it got
Looks
frozen.
like,
It was so cold there.
Well, it's
see,
either
this is-
boiling or
Well,
freezing.
that's right.
I can tell you, I can email you my
Half is
mom.
wearing
it
dress.
was
floor.
boiling.
you?
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
That's why I don't know
We
what
take the
generation.
kids to,
Yeah, that's